gentlemen, my name is Kevin Kross. You may know me as the Toll Man. You may know me as the Herald of Doomsday. You may even know me as the most vicious shooter in professional wrestling. Or maybe you just know me as the man of a million monikers, but right now you are listening to the ECWF podcast. Tuck your chin.
Get the F out.
Alright, welcome to episode number 39 of the ECWF podcast. We will not get the F out, we put the F back in. I'm your host, Sean Pickett, coming to you from the Electric City, Scranton, Pennsylvania. And before we get into this episode's guest, I want to start off with some quick announcements. First with LAW, Legendary Action Wrestling. I made my debut last month there as a ring announcer. And coming up on July 31st, I will be doing some more ring announcing, possibly. But I will be making my debut as a commentator there also. So that's cool. Definitely check that out. Also, another announcement I want to throw out there. A partnership with TopRopeReport.com. And I want to give a special shout out to Eric Ames, Molly Adams, Doug Barrow, and Christine Martinson over there. I will be doing a weekly podcast with one of them each and every Thursday, starting in August. We'll be covering the week in WWE as well as a pay-per-view preview and prediction show with a different one of them on a rotating basis. The Friday before the pay-per-view, I want to say. I think that was confirmed. But that's definitely exciting news. Weekly show coming every Thursday, starting in August, with one of those four I just mentioned. And that's TopRopeReport.com. It's a great website. You guys should definitely check that out. Really excited about that. And they've already posted some of my podcasts up on their site, including the one I did with the head writer over there, Eric Ames. As well as the interview I did with Lindsay Dorado, whose first round matchup in the Cruiserweight Classic is actually coming up on this Wednesday's episode. So, also I was reading a very interesting article over there on the website yesterday, written by Anthony DeMayo, about the Montreal Screwjob, and he thinks that was all a work. So very good read, very interesting. Check that out, and make sure you guys check out TopRopeReport.com. And remember, get on top. Alright, and you can listen to that interview I did with Lindsay Dorado, as well as all the other interviews I did, on iTunes at Electric City Wrestling Fans. Make sure you guys subscribe to that. Like, rate, review, all that stuff. That helps me out. Gets me up on the charts there. Helps me get better guests. Like the one I have on this episode. Kevin Kross, the Toll Man, the Herald of Doomsday, the most vicious shooter in professional wrestling, hashtag tuck your chin. We talk about all those nicknames. We definitely talk about some MMA. It's how he came up, training and stuff like that. We talk about Kurt Angle. We talk about future stars of wrestling, where he is the current world heavyweight champion and has been for close to a year now, as well as being undefeated there for over 2 years now. So that's amazing in itself. We talk about his match in WWE, where he tagged with Darren Young the night that the Primetime Players got back together. So that's an interesting story. We talk about a month later, after that match, he got a tryout at the Arnold Classic in front of everybody. We talk about Japan, his work in Global Force, his work with Lucha Underground, where I think we may be seeing him in the future there. Just a hunch. He didn't confirm that or deny that. So, plus all the amazing names he's worked with over a short career already. A great Bret Hart story in there. And possibly my favorite answer to what is his dream opponent ever. So I love the answer he gave, so I won't spoil it. You gotta listen to the whole interview for that. And so much more. You guys are gonna enjoy this one. If I didn't sell you on it already. I know I did. It was very easy. Fun interview. So without further ado, here is Kevin Kross. All right, back on the podcast here with Kevin Kross, the Toll Man, the Herald of Doomsday, the most vicious shooter in professional wrestling. Hashtag tuck your chin. Did I get them all?
There's a million of them. There's literally a million, and I'm proud to say that I didn't invent any of them. The fans of professional wrestling have been very affectionate towards me and usually come up with another moniker for me every 3 months. So all of those will work.
Okay. I think the one I've seen the most is the Toll Man. Do you have any story behind that one, or any?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I was competing in Las Vegas on the professional wrestling circuit, and I had cut a promo. I believe I had said something along the lines of, everybody wants to walk around and play the role. Now that Kevin Kross is on the scene, they're going to have to start paying the toll. It was something to that nature. I believe it was done in a pre-tape, and then I had repeated the line live in between the time that it aired locally on television and I was saying it live at the shows. It was just something that caught on, and people started calling me the Toll Man. So I think the best nicknames come from the audience, come from the people that watch the art, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I just rolled with it. I said, hey, man, if that's who they want me to be, that's who I'll be.
Okay. Okay, and the tuck your chin, that's usually a term used for in training. Where did that come from?
It was pretty funny. It was I've been boxing my entire life in kickboxing, and you do have to tuck your chin when you're competing. If your chin's out there, it's going to get ripped off your head. So I just thought it was funny once I started training professional wrestling. They were saying that because that's all I was thinking about. You don't want to keep your chin out. You want to tuck it in when you're boxing or kickboxing, or else you can get kicked under it, or you can get uppercut under it, or punched under it. I mean, a million bad things can happen. So every time they said that, I was just kind of more or less thinking about knocking people out. So, and that's kind of my style. So it just seemed very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
So I rolled with it.
Okay. And we were talking yesterday or the day before, and we were gonna try to get this done. And you were doing a MMA podcast.
Yes.
Okay, so you just mentioned doing boxing and kickboxing, and then talking about MMA. Is that something that has always been like maybe like a second passion of yours, or maybe a first passion before wrestling?
My first passion was always professional wrestling, but I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that was involved with combat sports, boxing, martial arts, and catch wrestling, Greco-Roman, freestyle, Volk. Any sort of grappling that you could possibly think of, they were involved with. Sambo, jiu-jitsu, judo, everything. They loved the grappling arts, and they loved boxing. And everyone in my family just had a very good punch, and it was just kind of the environment to grow up in. I grew up as a third-generation combat sport athlete, and before MMA became such a modern and relevant topic of conversation, I was kind of already doing that. My family was kind of involved. My father and my uncles were involved with coaching a lot of guys that were fighting before it was even legal in major cities. I think they were fighting and competing on native reserves in South America. And, I grew up around it, so there was a long period of time where I wanted to compete professionally. I had a lot of fights on native reserves and went to smokers. If you're not familiar with the term, it's just kind of it's actually another tongue-in-cheek kind of terminology for going in boxing in casinos where they were allowed to smoke. So you'd literally be doing rounds and there's cigarette smoke everywhere. So my main passion is professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. I was very dead set on competing professionally, which is originally why I had moved to Las Vegas, because this is the fighting mecca of the world. So getting into a proper training camp and seeing what I'm able to do at that top level was something I needed to find out where I could stand. Fighting on the native reserves and fighting all over the United States and Canada and stuff like that was all fine, but those guys were not on the level that the pros were on. So I really needed to see where I stood, and I was happy with where I stood. Right. I really didn't even discover anything I had to really be concerned about, but wrestling was always in the back of my mind. It was not something I could ever really make a departure from, and I just decided one day that I needed to go down to a professional wrestling academy and before I get on that road of being a professional fighter and getting my license and doing all that. And I'm really glad that I did it because it's been the most fulfilling experience and decision that I've ever made for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you mentioned like your family coming up and like they were almost like I want to like relate it to like the Gracies, like training people like really early on like that.
Not necessarily directly related to the Gracies, but I mean, before there were MMA camps,
Right.
there were just individual coaches. Like there were just like 2 or 3 guys that you could go to.
Nice.
You know, and my father and my uncles were all competing and doing stuff like that, and they were around a lot of people coming up: Chuck Liddell, Phil Baroni, Frank Mir, anyone really who was in the West at the time, training out of California, Arizona, or Las Vegas. They were training with or around, or even sometimes even coaching. So it was just that type of environment.
Nice. Okay. And I don't know if you saw the news yet. It just kind of broke like within the last hour or so about Brock Lesnar.
I just caught one of the headlines. That's a shame, man. That's a real shame because, he had an excellent fight and obviously, went through a lot of preparation and training to do it. Me personally, I'm a very hard person to offend. I have a very open and strange sense of humor, and I don't really judge anybody by anything. And I don't hold it against them. It's not my business, you know what I mean? But if it's true, that's a real shame.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been confirmed or anything like that. Potential, but even just the I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but the being accused of is already like perception. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that'll be interesting to see. And as it relates to WWE with the Roman Reigns suspension and how they handled that, it'd be interesting to see if they go forward with Brock doing anything like that. If it comes out that he was positive or whatever. Okay, so the MMA podcast, how often do you do that?
Every once in a while, someone will contact me for really any variety of subjects, whether it's politics, economics, history, pro wrestling, combat sports. It was the second time I was actually on that podcast, and I don't religiously watch MMA as much as I used to when I was deciding that I was going to compete professionally at that time. Mm-hmm. When you're really serious about it, you need to be paying attention to as much as possible because mixed martial arts is an ever-evolving sport. I mean, it's almost, I would even go so far as to say that it's not even the sport that it was 6 months ago. I mean, it's constantly evolving. So you really need to, I was always a big fan of watching every single fight. I wasn't just watching heavyweight fights because I would have been fighting heavyweight. Mm-hmm. I would have been fighting, I've been watching strawweight, lightweight, welterweight. I would have been watching the women bantamweight. I would have been watching everything because, as a student of whatever it is that you have a passion for, you can learn something from any direction you're paying attention to. So I would pay attention to all directions, and I picked up a lot of stuff. So.
Okay. And you mentioned you're living in Las Vegas. How long have you been out there?
I've been living in Las Vegas for 3 years, and it's been very good to me. Very, very good to me.
See, whenever I hear somebody lives in Las Vegas, I'm like, I don't know how that's possible because Las Vegas has such a reputation. But, like, how does that work? Is it like what you see in, like, TV and movies, or is it, like, a separate part where people actually, like a normal neighborhood?
It's both, actually. It's both. All of the madness that you see in television and movies definitely 100% exists on the Las Vegas Boulevard Strip with the hotels, casinos, the bars, the nightclubs, all of that stuff. It's pretty accurate. And then there's even stuff that I've seen I wouldn't even bother getting into right now that wouldn't even make television and movies. People are crazy. That's never going to change. But there is a massive suburban community outside of Las Vegas Boulevard. I personally live probably 15 minutes, probably less, away from the main city. I live near the mountains, as I was telling you earlier. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny. It's like, I think everyone that lives here appreciates greatly the significance and the importance of Las Vegas Boulevard. But people who live here don't really engage much with the gambling and with all of the craziness and stuff because everyone has, 9-to-5 jobs here, or they're professional athletes, so there's not a lot of leeway to be doing anything that's really outside of training for your occupation. And there's actually a small area right outside Las Vegas, which is it's a 10-minute drive off of Las Vegas Boulevard. It's called Henderson. and they're actually calling that the fitness capital of the world. It's like a lot of bodybuilders and a lot of professional athletes live in Henderson.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So, I just saw too a recent post that kind of you've been kind of throwing a name out there. Kurt Angle.
Yes.
What's the story behind that? I mean, obviously you're trying to get a match, but is it any history
Yeah.
or anything like that?
Not necessarily. I'm not directly or personally trying to push too hard for the match. It's just a match that people have wanted to see for a long time, and it's a match that I would, love to partake in. If anyone who is a aspiring professional wrestler or a professional wrestler, or even a fan, cannot deny that Kurt Angle has contributed so many moments and so much integrity to the performance art of professional wrestling. I think anyone should and would want to be in the ring with him. Obviously, he's on his way. I don't know, I shouldn't put words in his mouth, but it seems like he's on his way to retirement because he's done everything that there is to do in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done it so well that he's such a hard act to follow. I think that he's just looking for major matchups. And if he happens to pass me by, that's fine. But I think, he would be really missing out. I'd be really missing out. The fans would be really missing out. I think somewhere down the road, when the time is right, when Kurt wants to do it, he'll reach out to someone. But there's a lot of promotions that want to book it, and there's a very large demographic of wrestling fans that would like to see it. So it would be nice if that happened.
Yeah, I think absolutely I would want to see it too. And there's rumors of Kurt possibly with the draft coming up and stuff like that going back, but you never know. You can't read too much into that stuff. But your name has also come up in rumors about possibly going there. Would obviously you would want to fight him regardless, but I mean on a WWE stage, would that be like extra special?
Absolutely. Obviously WWE is the monopoly, I guess you could call it, of professional wrestling. They have very much monopolized everything since the territory days. But, trying to think of the most non-pretentious way to say it, I don't want it to come out the wrong way. I know a lot of people are absolutely eager and chomping at the bit to get into WWE. And to be honest with you, I was for the very first year that I was, in professional wrestling. I had a great, healthy correspondence with them. I had done a tryout in Ohio at the Arnold's. It was the first live tryout I think they've ever done. It was in front of 180,000 people, and I absolutely crushed it. I got a lot of excellent feedback. And, without putting it all out there, I mean, relations have always been good.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, I just had time to process what I felt like I needed to do for myself in professional wrestling. And, you'll always hear the cliche statement, professional wrestling doesn't owe you anything. And I 100% believe that. I got into this to contribute moments back to people that other professional wrestlers contributed to my life growing up and watching it. That is exactly what I'm all about. But I don't know necessarily if right now or even in the immediate future, WWE is the place that I want to contribute those moments to because I've wanted a storied career in Japan. That's something that I've wanted to do. I competed a long time ago in Inoki Genome Federation for Antonio Inoki. And, I'm very, 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 crazy, infatuated, in love with Lucha Underground. And I think that they right now are leading the revolution in new concepts and ideas and very much also honoring old school concepts as well. They're doing amazing things for professional wrestling right now, and that's really the direction I'm looking in currently. I really, really, really greatly want to be a part of that. I'm very much looking forward to doing that.
Okay. Before I ask you about Lucha, I wanted to just go back to the WWE for a second because you mentioned the Arnold Classic, and I think it was a month before that you were with Darren Young the night that the Primetime Players got back together.
Yeah, that's a funny story. I was, as I said, I've always had a healthy correspondence with them. They've always been great to me. Everyone's always been very cordial, very polite, nice. I would even go so far as to say even friendly. Very cool environment to be in. I would always get called up to, come on site and do this or do that if the loop had been passing me by. And just that particular night, Steve Regal and Fit Finley asked me if I'd be able to do some business, and I said yes, and that's what came about it. It was just right on the spot, and I said absolutely. And I had a blast. That was awesome.
Yeah, I think it was a match against the Ascension, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah.
Darren Young and I went out there, and they jumped us before the bell, put the boots to us, and then they had put the primetime players back together again.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned Lucha Underground too, and you had a bunch of dark matches for them. And again, there was rumors out there that you had signed with them during your dark matches. And you mentioned like that somewhere you want to definitely go. Has anything else come about besides dark matches?
I cannot confirm or deny that anything has come up.
Okay.
I cannot. Yeah, I hate to be that guy,
That's
but
okay. I understand.
I can't confirm it, but I can absolutely confirm that I have been working darks with Lucha for season 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And seriously, I mean, it's like I said. I hate to harbor on the word fulfillment, but that environment there, that energy. I've been fortunate enough and hungry enough to get around the United States and Canada and Japan wrestling, and there's no place like the Temple. And the fans there, I mean, they just bring us to life, man. We can do anything. We literally feel invincible while we're out there. It's really something special, and it was an absolute pleasure to be there, and I look forward to returning.
Yeah. And that definitely works out because that's in Los Angeles, right? They film.
Yep.
And you're right there in Las Vegas, so pretty easy commute for you. Talk about like being in that locker room, like how different just Lucha Underground in general is different than anything else out there. But what's the locker room like in comparison to a WWE or somewhere else you've been?
The locker room vibe is 100% family. This is the type of I hate even referring to it as a company or promotion. I don't like to label it like that, but it's like an environment that is encouraging for success. You hear so many stories about guys coming out of WCW or NWA or WWF or E or TNA, and you hear these horror stories about the politics that occur in professional wrestling. Writers and bookers want this over, they want that over, they want him or her this way or that way, and there's so much control and misdirection, and people are constantly trying to muddy the water. None of those things exist at the Temple. I mean, we're talking about a motivated group of people that are not like a machine. They're organic, and they work together to accomplish one goal, which is to entertain people as much as humanly possible. And that feedback, that energy from them, it's like it goes back and forth. We show up and we want to do the best job we absolutely can, and the fans show up and they give us exactly what we need to do it. And it's that energy, it's that love and affection and that loyalty. It's incredible. I mean, the locker room is there. I don't think there's ever going to be a better locker room that's ever going to exist. I mean, like I said, family is an understatement. I mean, can't think of a better word. The words elude me as to how I can. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah,
It's absolutely perfect.
That's cool. So like everybody's rooting for everybody. Nobody's like worried about their spot, or nobody's trying to
Not at all.
to get over.
Not at all.
Yeah, that's cool. And I've been watching season 1 and 2. And I'm a huge fan of Lucha Underground as well. I watch it on iTunes because I don't get the El Rey network because this place where I live, whatever. But my favorite character on the show, and I don't know if you had any interaction with him in locker room or out there, Dario Cueto.
Yes.
The character, I mean, it's just. I don't hate to say the word perfect, but like every aspect of it is perfect to me. Have you had any action with him, locker room or otherwise?
Lots. I used to see him every single day I was there. He is a brilliant actor. He's awesome, and he's another person. He, it doesn't even matter that he's not a professional wrestler. His passion is equal to or even greater than just anyone that's there. He is totally on board with it. He's the life and face of Lucha Underground. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's like he makes the ship go, if you will.
Sure, yeah, he's the man.
Yeah. Another one. I don't know if you had any experience with her. I had her on this podcast before. Cobra Moon.
Yeah, Cobra Moon is like probably, in my opinion, one of the best professional female wrestlers that I've ever seen. She learns really, really quickly, and she's a fan of the science of professional wrestling, the catch wrestling style. She's like a hybrid wrestler. I think that's the best way to put it. And she's constantly getting better and better and better and ever changing. And Very, very cool person.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, bring it up to the current day. You are the FSW World Heavyweight Champion,
That is correct.
and you had I'm not sure if it's still going, but a pretty lengthy undefeated streak.
I've been undefeated for over 2 years in Future Stars of Wrestling. I've been competing against guys from NOAH, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, former WWE, Ring of Honor. I mean, you name it. PWG guys, everyone that literally is out here on the West Coast. Thatcher, who gave me a really good fight, actually dislocated my arm in the match. We were able to finish it. I had one arm.
Oh wow!
He was the Evolve champion. I've had a very storied career so far. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah, and did you win the title? Correct me if I'm wrong. Off Brian Cage.
I did last September. We're almost coming up on 1 year that I've had the belt.
Wow.
I competed against Brian.
And another guy that we both talked to yesterday. I talked about Alexander Hammerstone.
Yep, Hammerstone. Him and I have had a couple fisticuffs, so to speak.
Yeah, he's hopefully I could get him on here soon. We got messed up with the time and stuff, but we'll work it out. Another company that you done work with is Paragon Pro.
Yeah, I'm glad that's done. I hate to speak ill of anyone or anything. It's really not in my personality, truly and honestly. But that was not a hard pill to swallow.
Okay. And I think you've done some ROH work too.
No, that was a rumor though. I think that almost happened. I think that almost happened once or twice, which is the most hilarious statement because you either know or you don't.
Yeah.
Those are stories for a later time, I suppose.
Okay. So going back to Future Stars of Wrestling, undefeated for 2 years. I mean, that's unheard of. Like, were you like conscious of it like as it was going on, or did it just kind of happen over time? You're like, oh wow, I haven't lost, or is like that going in? You're like, I want to be undefeated, or
no? Sincerely, I just showed up to work. Truly and honestly, I don't think I've ever asked for anything. I literally showed up and I did my absolute best, and I strived to get better, and I did. I went so far and beyond out of my way to entertain people, not just only at the event, but even after the event and between the events. I think it's important to engage the fans of professional wrestling. I don't think, for me at least, it's not just the event itself. It's what's going on when the event's not there. The staying in contact with people, But to directly answer your question, I mean, I literally just showed up and I just went up to the people in charge and I said, "What do you need from me?" And I think my mentality and my work ethic, and they saw, I train 7 days a week, 3 times a day. So that's not an exaggeration. I've always been like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I told you, that was the kind of family environment I grew up in. We were all athletes. So that's just kind of my culture. It's the way I live, which is also another reason why I don't have a problem living in the suburbs of Las Vegas. I live a very simple life, and I like it that way. I live a life very comparative to anybody else, to be honest with you. Minus the fact that I'm training 7 hours a day. But yeah, I just showed up to work, and this is what they wanted out of me. And I don't think that there was actually and this is just my opinion, I don't think that there was actually a clear sight that this is how things were going to turn out. But I've been very fortunate to get my start with a company that loves its fans. And this company that I got my start with does not try to shove anything down anyone's throat. And they give the fans what they want. And, this is what people wanted. So, and it was just a gradual thing. We just played it by ear.
Now, you mentioned 2 years. The last thing I saw was over 700 days, so my math isn't great, but I mean, that's over 2 years, right?
Yes, I've been undefeated over 2 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, eventually it has to come to an end, I would think.
No.
But I mean, when it does, I mean, that's huge, like storyline wise, to like you're gonna make somebody instantly.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna end their career right after the match. No, you're right though. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that responsibility and accountability of which direction that's going to go in. That's going to be real big.
Now, I would imagine if it does ever come to an end, maybe you don't have to lose the title at the same time. I mean, do you have any say in that? Maybe.
Nah, I don't. I mean, I know some guys are into that. Some people like to sit down and whatever. I mean, I don't even really know how that all that works. I really just try to keep it as simple as possible. My main focus, and sincerely when I say this, my main focus is to make sure whatever the direction is that we're going in, the day of, the night of, whatever, is that the people get their money's worth. And again, I know it's cliche to say it, but it really is the truth. And anyone that has consistently seen me compete would tell you they can read that vibe from me. I'm not the guy to be going through the motions. I'm going in there to kill, and that's what people deserve to get. So I mean, not the guy in the ring. Well, maybe he does, but I mean, when you pay for a ticket, when you pay for a professional wrestling ticket, there's different genres of pro wrestling on the card. There's lucha libre. There is your classic style, your mid-south, whatever you want to call it. You've got high flyers. You've got powerhouses. I'm the guy that dumps people on their heads, and I'm going to kick people's brains out. And that's what I contribute to the show. And people feel what I put out there, and that's my relation with them. We feed off of each other.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Now, I'm sorry if I asked this before. Maybe I didn't. But how long have you been wrestling?
Actually, I have been wrestling for over 236 years. No, I began professional wrestling just, when was it, May 2014. May 2014,
Oh, wow.
I began wrestling.
So it hasn't been that long, and you've already had this much success. Like that's crazy.
Yep, I was talking to Masters. Chris Masters is a good buddy of mine. I haven't talked to him in the last little bit because he's traveling so much to the UK. But he was telling me he was saying it's unheard of, and it's a testament to my work ethic. And that's always one of the best compliments that I could ever get.
Yeah. Now going on like a win streak like that. I don't want to say it involves a lot of luck, but in terms of like not getting injured, and you just mentioned wrestling Thatcher with one arm, but I mean, is it a testament to your training, how you train, that you haven't been able, like serious injuries that kept you out, that you've been undefeated for that long?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to gauge, I guess, depending on your definition of injured and hurt. I mean, a lot of professional wrestlers get hurt. I mean, I know guys that get hurt every single show. But maybe hurt to us or hurt to them might be when they were being whipped out of the ring and they landed on the apron before they hit the floor, they landed funny on their knee and they limped around for 2 or 3 days. And you're good after 4 or 5 days. I mean, that's getting hurt. Getting injured might be tearing your ACL, your MCL, meniscus, and now you're out for 7 months. That might be injured. I have a hard time being able to identify whether I'm hurt or injured. I'd like to say that I haven't been injured yet, but I will tell you that the first year that I was wrestling was very trying. A lot of people didn't know this, but I had a compound fracture in my left heel, which is almost impossible to do because your heel is like one of the most calcified bones in your body. I somehow compound fractured that, and I had how did they say it? It was a partial tear in my left lumbar muscle in my back. It was a very, very small tear. And I wasn't even sure if I needed surgery for it. They weren't sure. They told me to take it easy, which I didn't. But I was careful, though. I kind of did my own rehab on it. So it was just basically staying away from certain movements of lifting and running and turning and stuff like that. And it was tough. I've been, that match with Cage, actually, I had my jaw dislodged out of the left side 5 minutes into the match. We had a 25-minute match. It felt like he was shooting me in the face with a nail gun every time he came near me. So, I mean, I will call that getting hurt. But I think I'd personally refer to an injury as, needing surgery. And as you said, I'm lucky that I haven't had that happen. But
Knock on wood.
Yeah, stuff happens.
That's crazy. So, you mentioned like your heel and stuff like that, your back. Does that happen in training or like during matches or over the course of time or?
I wish I knew. That particular injury, I don't know whether that happened training or it happened in a match. It could have happened either time, but I gradually made it worse. It wasn't something that instantaneously happened.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. You're like a beast.
Well, thank you. A lot of work goes into it, man. You know what I mean? And it's the type of thing where if you don't love this, you're definitely not going to last very long in it.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
with the stuff like that happens. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I saw some pictures you posted from the Cauliflower Alley Club,
Yep.
and can you some of the guys you met there and like what that experience was like overall?
I've never wrestled or competed at Cauliflower Alley, but I think I've been there once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best time was actually I ran into Lenny Denton, who's the grappler. A while back, I used to travel on the road with him for an indie show, and spending time with the grappler was awesome. He's been everywhere and done everything, and not only is he a great human being with great stories and a great sense of humor and a warm heart, he's just very educated. Being in the business for so long, he just accidentally says things sometimes that just completely open your mind and change the direction of the way you think about professional wrestling or even life sometimes. He's an awesome guy. He's a very fathering figure and a good friend, so it was good to see him there. And then I saw Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, there. That was awesome.
Nice.
So I think those are probably the two big moments that stood out for me, visiting Cauliflower Alley.
Nice. Okay. Um, you mentioned Japan before too. How many times did that come about?
I was there very briefly. I was there on a tour with the Noki Genome Federation. I believe that was also in my first year of wrestling. I think that was 7 months into my professional wrestling career. The only reason that worked out was because I had a shoot background. It's because I grew up in combat sports. Because I can translate a lot of what's going on there very quickly and adapt and make the transition pretty easily.
Right.
The reason I haven't been back, I think, is because I don't want to say. I'll let people read that on the internet.
Okay.
I don't want to say it because I actually don't know. There's a lot of guys that haven't been back. I don't want to speculate. That was an awesome experience. That was life changing to have the opportunity to go into a culture that is completely different from anything I've ever been in or been a part of. It's a culture that I've had a lot of esteemed respect for. I grew up also doing Kyokushinkai, which is a Japanese martial art. It's a different type of karate style. It was invented by a guy named Maso Yama. The guy used to punch bulls in the head and actually kill the bulls. He was a real person.
Wow.
But I learned a lot about Japanese culture through Kyokushinkai, and it's always been a very good basis of philosophy for me. So being able to go there into a place where something I was practicing, it was invented there, is very special to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not like obviously like New Japan's blown up like the past years too with coming over and ROH stuff and all the Bullet Club stuff but another thing out there that's kind of getting popular, gaining steam is the UK like indie scene.
Yes.
Have you any aspirations or talks or anything like that?
The United Kingdom is actually probably the only place I haven't spoken to anyone regarding coming out there and competing, but I've expressed interest in going.
Mm-hmm.
And surprisingly, actually, I have a lot of fans for the short time I've been in the business that are in the UK. They reach out to me on social media all the time, and it's very flattering because I don't know how they're getting the footage. You think about it, like there are 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 professional wrestlers that are out there all over the planet. And they found my stuff, and I've only been doing this a short amount of time. So that was amazing. It was awesome, and I was like, people from all over the world are really enjoying the stuff I'm putting out there. That's what I intended for. So that's fulfilling to me. That's awesome. So I plan on being out there at some point, but somebody's got to give me a call. If I show up uninvited, I might get arrested.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Other countries like Canada or Mexico, anything like that?
Yes, actually, I competed in Toronto, Canada, which was actually a city I spent a long time in. I lived in Toronto for approximately, I'm going to get this wrong, I'm going to say 12 years, but it was probably more like 17.
Oh, wow.
I traveled all over the United States and Canada, living in different places my whole life, but I spent an extraordinary amount of time in Toronto because I loved it, and I have a lot of family there, and it was a very progressive city, liberally, and I competed at Destiny World Wrestling.
Okay.
And Mexico, I'm actually looking into. I can't give any details away, but that's something that will be occurring in the immediate future.
Nice. Okay, so far in the interview, to recap, Kevin Kross is going to Lucha Underground, and no.
Thanks a lot.
Just kidding.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Don't want to start any kind of Negative rumors or say he said that. I said that. Kevin didn't say that. And Mexico. Anyway, talk about Global Force. I know you did some work with them, and even there was a TV spot with Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, Jeff and I were on television locally here in Las Vegas on the news, and it was funny because we had only known each other for about, I don't know, 24 hours or something like
Oh,
that.
wow.
So it was me, Jeff, Karen, and it was all the media people. So like in the morning, like I was just told, he was like, hey, meet us at the television station at, whatever time. It was like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, cool. Set my alarm, get up, I run, I train, I come back home, I shower, I eat, I put my suit and tie on, and I show up. And he's there, and he's like, he's got the Global Force shirt on with a pair of jeans. And I was like, oh. I was like, should I? I was like, am I overdressed? He's like, nope, not at all. He's like, you look like $1 million. I was like, okay, cool. And we sit down, and like we didn't talk about anything. But I guess he was unaware that I had a great deal of product knowledge about the company. So when they started asking me questions on TV, I accurately projected what Global Force is, is what they're doing, and basically just tried to, let people know that they're trying to revolutionize wrestling. At the time, they had a lot of excellent ideas. I believe they still do. All the stuff that we had filmed at Orleans was phenomenal. He had wrestlers from all over the planet. Mm-hmm. You'd have to go see elsewhere in their hometowns. He had them all in Vegas. Like it's an excellent concept and idea. So I started talking about all that, and at the end of it, Karen had come up to me and she was like, who the hell are you? I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, you're so well spoken. She's like, you've been quiet for the last 2 days. Like, you barely said a word. And we put a camera on you, and you're like, it was funny. We all got off to a great start. I consider them very good friends of mine. Yeah. I see them every so often. We're at WrestleCon together. We had a blast.
Yeah, there was a Global Force show that came here last month, beginning of last month, and there was a meet and greet before. And even Colt Cabana did a live podcast before, and both Karen and Jeff were on the podcast. And, like, they were just, like, so, like, normal. Like, I don't know, to me, they have such the name, and just to see, like, them in that environment and just be, like, regular, everyday, normal people, and then even meeting them afterwards, like, they don't have, like, big heads or anything like that. And I know, like, in some circles, Karen gets a negative reputation for the way she could be or whatever. I don't know her like that, but from my experience with her, like, I talked to her maybe a minute or two, very brief, but from my experience, like, I think she's awesome. So
yeah. After meeting her and knowing her and Jeff for a long time, if anyone has anything negative to say about them, I would probably assume that it's some sort of shoot work interview that someone's watching and they're buying a little too heavily into it. It's probably them trying to set up a match because those two people are extraordinary people, and they welcome everybody in like family, and I've never really known anyone to say anything generally negative about either one of them. And if they said it to me, it probably wouldn't go over very well. It probably result in them going through a window. So
yeah, and it is a great product, and you mentioned, like, all the different names he gets in there and stuff, like, and they filmed stuff for TV, but is that ever going to see the light of day, do you think, in your opinion?
Unfortunately, I don't have any insight about it. I do know that the guy who's in charge of all that stuff, Kevin Sullivan, not the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan from production, is a genius, and he has a great imagination, and he's able to see something, and he's able to reframe it and make amazing things out of it. Like, he showed me a little bit of the stuff of what it would look like as a final product. So little bits and clips and stuff like that. All I can say is if it does hit television, it's going to be a great contribution to professional wrestling, and it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very different than what other people have seen. So, and that's all I'll say.
So how much stuff was filmed, like, when they were out there with you?
I don't recall how many episodes, but I had wrestled 3 or 4 times for them.
Yeah, I was going to say quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, they had 3 filming dates at the Orleans and Las Vegas last year, I think, or the year before. I lost track. But there's enough content for it, to go on television today. So
Yeah, absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I want to throw out some of the names that you worked with. Like you said, a very short career, but you had amazing matches, and I watched a bunch of stuff on YouTube already. But I'll just throw up some names, and if you want to just say a couple things about them or stories or whatever you could throw out.
Sure.
Bobby Roode, who may or may not. Oh, yeah, he did debut in NXT now. But
Yeah, working with Bobby Roode was awesome. He's a gentleman, and we had a lot of fun. We really didn't have to talk about much, which was always nice. We just were able to get in the ring and move, so that was a blast, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he winds up doing with the rest of his career.
yeah, definitely. Okay, another guy who was amazing, Joey Ryan.
Love Joey to death. He has the best sense of humor next to Paul London, in my opinion.
Oh, okay, nice. All right, Congo Kong.
He's awesome. I don't know how much I should say. But I don't know how many interviews he takes. He reminds me of like the 2.0 of Kamala. You know what I mean?
Very good.
He's like he has that vibe and that presence. Only he's a lot bigger and a lot more agile and athletic. With all due respect to Kamala, but he's really awesome. Love that guy. He would be huge in Japan. I don't know if he's already been there or not. My apologies if he has, but he would be a great figure to have there.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
As a throwback.
Yeah, it's perfect. I think that's like suited for like tailor made for Japan. And another one, and he was at the Global Force show I was at. I met him. Brian Myers.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Brian Myers, awesome dude. Very grounded, very cool. I really enjoyed working with him.
Yeah, and for those that don't know the internet, he's at Pat Buck's bachelor party right now. They've been posting a bunch of stuff all day, so if anybody follows them, definitely check that out. It's a lot of fun, a lot of cool stuff they're showing. We talked about Lucha Underground. Let me see what else I have. Meeting Bret Hart.
Oh, Bret Hart, that was really cool and random. I actually, there was an after party for the wrestling event in Toronto that I did. So, not a lot of people know this, but I was an executive protection bodyguard and a doorman and a bouncer for a long time. I put together a lot of teams and was a part of a lot of teams. I got a long storied history doing bouncing and so forth. I wound up going to a nightclub that I hadn't ever worked with because it was brand new, but majority of the staff there from A to Z were people that I had worked with, and it was awesome to get to see them. A lot of them were my friends, and I went up, they brought me up to the DJ booth, and I sat down, and being a good boy, I got my sugar-free Red Bull. It was going to be an early morning. I had planned on training there and everything, so I was staying out of trouble. And the tech guy had put my highlight videos on the screens in the nightclub.
Nice.
So now while they're blasting house music, there are these giant televisions all over the walls playing my highlight videos. And I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And people are dancing, but then they're stopping. And then they're like, what is that? Because usually they have like visuals or whatever and people dancing and surfing and stuff. Now there's like me on these screens in the nightclub. There's like 4,000 people there watching me kick people in the face and Saedo them. And I was like, this is incredible. And the whole room literally froze and they were watching. And I was watching people shrug and react. They didn't know what they were seeing. They were watching somebody beat the crap out of them. And then they get on the DJ booth and they're like, hey, everybody, Kevin Kross is here in the building. And it was like a giant 4,000 person plug right in front of everybody. Wow. They all started going nuts. And right next to me in the DJ booth, I had no idea, was Bret Hart and his entire family.
Wow.
I didn't even recognize him when I walked in because I was so blown away by, the interior of the place and the music and seeing everyone. So, he looks at me and he looks at the TV and he looks back at me and gives me a nod and, smirks, and I come over and I shake his hand. I'm like, hey, man, I don't want to bother you. Do this whole long-winded hello. I know you're here with your family. I just want to say my name's Kevin Kross. Pleasure to meet you. If you need anything tonight, man, by all means, let me know. I know everybody here. He's like, thank you. That was it. Just something very small, but I was sitting in a nightclub and Bret Hart and I are watching myself on the, on the wall. It was just crazy. It was totally insane. It was really, it was really cool.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Bret Hart's in a nightclub, number one.
Yeah, no, he was hanging out in a private booth with his family. I think his sons were there, and they weren't up to anything. Everyone was just behaving, enjoying themselves.
And you were working, or you were just there?
No, I was just hanging out.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
It was the after party for Destiny Wrestling.
Okay.
Where I had an after party, huh?
Nice. Okay. Another one I want to throw out there. Rip Rogers.
Love Rip Rogers. I talk to Rip every so often, just about random stuff. A lot of crude humor. Another guy who has a weird sense of humor like me.
Yeah.
I had trained under Rip Rogers for about a week or so in Toronto while I was there, actually, at Destiny. He holds seminars in Toronto all the time, which I recommend anyone to go to. I learned so much just spending a little bit of time with him. And every time I talk to him, I learn something. He's another one of those guys, just like Lenny Denton, the grappler. He just will accidentally say things that will just blow your mind and just kind of really open your thoughts up, and you just get better being around certain people. Rip Rogers is one of them. Mm-hmm. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, he definitely. Did you get to spend a lot of time with him, or was it just a training seminar, or?
It was just a week, I think, maybe even 2 weeks. I don't recall, but I remember every day that I worked with him was awesome. Mm-hmm. It was, you felt smarter walking out. That's always awesome. Anytime you meet somebody and have a conversation with them, or you work with them, and you leave, just knowing, such an expansive amount of information afterwards, it's a good feeling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I got a couple more. I don't want to throw out too many and name drop, but I mean, you have worked with amazing people, so I kind of want to.
Sure.
Jake Roberts.
Jake Roberts, another guy. I mean, not to be redundant, but that's another person who just is such an informative, educated person. And again, he has a great sense of humor as well. I had the opportunity of and pleasure of working with him and in front of him a couple times over Future Stars of Wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I always got excellent feedback from him, which was also very flattering. And, he takes things and he fine-tunes them and makes them better. Mm-hmm. And again, one of those people you walk away from feeling a lot smarter and feeling a lot better and loving what you do even more.
Right,
he teaches education, and he teaches passion, and he teaches humor. So, very special person.
Did you see the documentary?
I haven't yet, because I haven't been able to watch an hour of television probably in the last 6 months. I've been so busy. Seriously.
I guess that's a good thing. But I mean, I
guess I'm dying over here. I mean, the only thing that I ever really get to watch these days is tape.
Yeah.
Because something's coming up, or I have an idea or something. So I'm not much of a television person. And plus, I wanted to see it in theaters.
Oh,
it was supposed to be in theaters out here, and then I wound up getting a booking on the other side of the United States. So I was really bummed out that I didn't see it in theaters. I want to be able to sit down and just be left alone.
Yeah.
I want the lights off, my phone off, and I just want to watch it. You know what I mean?
That's definitely one you have to because it's such an amazing story, and everybody knows the story by now, obviously. Just the documentary, I mean, it takes you through everything. I mean, the lows, the highs, the whole story. It's great. I mean, I recommend it to anybody, not just wrestling fans, like anybody in general. But you definitely should check that out when you get a chance.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll throw out. We were talking MMA earlier. I'll throw out two more names. Dan Severn and Don Fry.
Dan Severn I had met, I believe, back at an expo, possibly a UFC expo a couple years ago. I actually talked to him for about 5 or 10 minutes on training, Greco-Roman freestyle and catch wrestling. I was asking him what types of Olympic lifts he would recommend for me to have a little bit more of an explosive suplex or catching people with stuff. And just, I was asking him about Olympic lifting versus mobility. And he sat there and he just went into theory right away. Talked to him a little about NWA and UWFI, and really cool guy.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's everybody talked about Brock doing the wrestling and the UFC thing, but I mean Dan Severn did that way before anybody. I mean, he was even before there was a UFC.
Yeah, he was in there doing all of those smoker style grappling competitions and stuff where almost anything goes except for striking, and he was one of those guys 100%, was a pioneer, just like Don Fry. Both of those guys coming up around the same time, giving their contributions to mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. Don Fry, in my opinion, was an excellent professional wrestler in Japan. I really liked his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Dan, very cool guy. And let's see, Don Fry I had met for the first time in, I want to say Phoenix, Arizona, when I wrestled on an IWF card. And we had this whole entire match planned out. And then Don had walked in and a bunch of people had introduced me to him. and I was sitting down and I was talking to him. I couldn't even tell you what we were talking about. It wasn't anything about wrestling.
Yeah.
I think we were trying to laugh about some stuff that was going on nearby, and I just told him, I said, hey, man, I got something for you tonight in the match. And he goes, oh, yeah? And I go, yeah, you'll know what it is when you see it. I hope you enjoy it. And he goes, all right, I'll keep my eyes open. And I wound up actually finishing the match with a Taz mission. So I just felt like putting it in there for him.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I knew he liked that move, so I just put that in there for him. And I got up and I gave him a look across the room, and he stood up, he put his thumb up and gave me a wink and started laughing.
Nice,
So
nice.
that was cool. And then I saw him again. I saw him again at the UFC Expo.
Cool.
And just chatted with him real quick.
Yeah. Okay, so with all that being said, and we threw out a bunch of names there, have you ever been like not starstruck, but like, man, that was cool, or like looking back, you're like, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah, every single time I've, I don't know. I mean, I want to be really honest at this. That I know that if someone hears this by the name of Matt Stryker, I'll never hear the end of it. So maybe I won't say the original thing I was going to say.
Okay.
I'll say this, though. The very first time I was really starstruck was probably when I met Ric Flair. And I wasn't expecting to be, but I wound up inadvertently getting into a conversation with him when he was at an autograph signing in a mall when I was like 16. And yeah, it was real weird. He wound up being somewhere I was in the mall, and he remembered me being in the line. It was me and a buddy of mine. We went up and we got his book signed, and we left. It was no big deal. But then he was just around us, and he just very friendly just started up a conversation with me, and I was like, wait a second. I'm not in line anymore waiting to, just see Ric Flair for 4 seconds and get signed and shake his hand and say thanks a lot. Now Ric Flair's talking to me, and being 16, I was like, I had no idea how to compose myself at all. He probably thought I had a head injury. I couldn't even tell you what I was saying, but I was saying some insane stuff and probably made a fool out of myself. But it was probably something that he's probably seen that a million times. I know a lot of professional, or not professional, but a lot of like actors and professional athletes, I was going to say, that have met him who completely freak out, that are multimillionaires, self-made. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he wasn't shocked that there was a starstruck kid who was 16 who was like,
yeah.
So the other time I was starstruck was when I met Willem Dafoe, which has nothing to do with wrestling, but I just thought I'd throw that in there for absolutely no reason. So there.
Hey, I mean that's legitimate. I mean he's a big movie star, done a bunch of stuff, Spider-Man and whatnot.
Streets of Fire. If you've never seen it, anyone listening to this, you need to find that. There's a sledgehammer fight in it.
Yes, very good. Okay. And one of the last things we'll talk about. We're kind of winding down here. There was a picture. You had a WWE envelope you got in the mail, and can you say what was in it?
Yeah, it was. I'm sorry. It was fuck. I'm sorry. Now I'm swearing. Oh my god. Let me compose myself. Okay, so listen. This is what happened.
Okay.
I wasn't even thinking that people were going to react in the way that they did. Uh-huh. I very foolishly just took a picture of a tax form that came in.
Okay.
A tax form in the mail. That's all it was. So I was just basically claiming my wages earned that year from some background stuff and some little things here and there that I did. I like it completely. No one will believe me, except if you know me, then you'd realize, yeah, that's Kevin. And I took a picture of it and put it up. Not expecting people to react the way they did. They thought it was a contract. And I was like, well, if I immediately take it down now, then it's going to look like I'm trying to hide something, and I don't have anything to hide. Right. So I was like, oh. Well,
yeah. This one I was reading some of the comments, and people were like, oh, congratulations, and I knew you would get signed and stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself, like, even if he did, he wouldn't be able to announce it. I don't think. So I didn't read too much into it, but I saw the picture and like your finger was blocking the address and stuff, and I just wanted to ask you about that because I thought that was pretty funny.
That was a huge screw up on my part. I apologize. But anyone who was offended, everyone kind of laughed about it when they talked to me in person. They were like, "So when are you leaving?" And I was like, "I'm leaving in 5 minutes, but I'm not going to Orlando. I'm going to the gym."
Yeah.
I felt really bad about it, but yeah, that was absolutely nothing.
Okay. Dream opponent. Anybody, past or present, if you could pick anybody or a couple of people?
Brock Lesnar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
For all the reasons, man. The guy has been a massive inspiration to me as an athlete and a competitor and a professional wrestler. I was always a fan of what he was doing in NCAA. I was watching him at that time when he was doing that. I was encouraged by coaches and friends and family. They were going, "You got to see this guy. He's a total freak." And then, I kind of just forgot about him for a while. And then he was in professional wrestling. Where me and my friends were like, "That's hilarious. That guy was eating people alive. We had no idea he was in OVW. We didn't even know OVW existed."
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly he was just on Raw and he was powerbombing people on garbage cans. And we were like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
So, he's just been a major inspiration for me. And I think him and I would be able to have a match that people would never forget.
So is that the top one, or is there anybody else like in the past, or that's like the end all be all?
The Rock.
Oh, that's another good one.
Yeah. The Rock would be a match that I will have to have at some point in my life. That has to happen somewhere, someplace. That's got to go down.
Okay. Well, with that W envelope contract that you got, maybe you could work something out. I'm just kidding.
The most legitimate thing that anyone has ever seen.
Yes. And there's rumors floating around Brock versus Rock next WrestleMania, possibly, I heard.
I hope. That would be great.
That would be
good
amazing.
For business too.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see a triple threat with Kevin Kross in there. Just throwing it out there. No.
I'll throw another one out there. I'll throw two out there, actually. Shibata. Are you familiar with him?
Don't know the name.
Shibata. Shibata. If you can look that name up, he is competing, I believe, in New Japan right now. Okay. Possibly Noah, I don't recall. But he wrestles all over the Japan circuit. The guy is phenomenal. A lot of people are comparing him as the second coming of Nakamura and Kenta Kobashi and Kawada, who were three of some of my favorite professional wrestlers who have ever lived, especially Kawada and Kobashi. Yep. Vampiro actually really turned me on to those guys. I knew who they were before, but he kind of put a new set of eyes on me for things to look for, things to watch, and things to emulate. And I've been watching nothing but Kawada and Kobashi when I have time to watch something.
Yeah, definitely. That gives me something to do for the rest of the night now. Thank you.
And CM Punk.
Oh man, that's such a. My wife, but when his run was going, the summer of Punk, and I was such a Punk fan, and she was the Cena fan, and there would be such arguments and fight in my household. But I was such a huge CM Punk fan. I still am to this day. I mean, I hope the UFC thing goes well for him, but ultimately, I hope they work something out where he comes back because, man, I was such a huge fan of his. Like,
I think he will, but I personally I don't think he'll be coming back to WWE.
Yeah,
but he'll be coming back somewhere, and hopefully it's somewhere I am.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be amazing. Yeah, who knows? I mean. That's great. I'm so glad you said that name. All right. What's upcoming for Kevin Kross? Where can we see you in the future? Are you coming to the East Coast at all anytime soon?
I actually am. July 30th and 31st, I will be in North Carolina. On the 30th, I will be competing at Injustice for All against Cedric Alexander.
Wow.
That may be the last match he ever has.
Yeah.
My opponent has not been named for the 31st, although several names have been thrown out that are marquee names on the indie circuits. I won't blow anything yet because I'd rather the company announce that, but that'll be a big match on the 31st. So back-to-back, July 30th and 31st, North Carolina. And then I also have a street fight that I will be doing here in Las Vegas, July 22nd at the Silverton Hotel and Casino for Future Stars of Wrestling. And my opponent is the corrupt commissioner of the company, Paulie Cover. Long story.
Yeah, I got into that a little bit. You could touch on it a little bit if you want.
Sure. So Paulie Cover has not agreed with my means of being the world champion or being undefeated in Future Stars of Wrestling over the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. He is a guy that sees numbers instead of people. And while I can understand his position as commissioner in the company to generate money for the company and bring in names and position certain people to be in better spots than others, I believe in efficiency. And the way I choose to be efficient is by dive bombing people on their heads. He doesn't like my style of wrestling, doesn't like the way I shoot, so to speak. And we've had many issues over the last 8 months, I should say, where he has tried to close in the parameters of how I can win and what I can do. He's basically been making my life a living hell and almost had me removed from the company. But now I'm back. I've re-signed. And part of the terms of me resigning was to get him in the ring to fight me. And if he's not going to do that, then he's fired. So either we're never going to see him again, or I'm going to beat him up and we may never see him again after that.
Either way, yeah. That's all. So it's like a modern day Stone Cold Vince.
It's been compared to that, very much so.
Nice. Okay. Anything else? What else? What else is coming up?
Right now, these are the main three things I'm focused on. I know I have some more dates in the East Coast in October, but the companies haven't confirmed the dates yet, but I've been contacted about it. I will be returning to Toronto by the end of the year, possibly see me in Mexico by the end of this year.
Nice.
And I'll always be here in Las Vegas competing for Future Stars of Wrestling.
And season 3 of Lucha Underground. Just no.
You never know.
Season 4, maybe. We'll see.
I cannot confirm or deny, says my attorney.
You heard it here first. Do you want to throw out your social media stuff, Kevin?
Absolutely. I have a Twitter account. It's Across the World, AKROSS, the world. I believe I also have a Facebook account. It's Kevin Kross, KROSS. I have an Instagram account. Kevin's Gonna Kill You, because I actually will if I see you in person. If you're a Paulie Cover supporter. And as well, I actually have shirts that you can pick up online at worldfamousshirtshow.com. You can pick up my shirts there. I'll mail them anywhere in the world.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. I thought you were going to say pro wrestling tees, but...
Well, I tried.
Yeah?
But somebody's chewing that big league bubble gum.
Okay, I gotcha. All right. I want to thank you for taking time out, and we got this done. It was really fun. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, it was my pleasure. I'm glad you reached out and had me on again. We'll do this again.
Well, I mean, once you get too famous and you're on Lucha Underground and everything, maybe it won't be available, but...
Everybody always says that. I think I'm still going to be the same guy.
Well, no, because, I mean,
just
doesn't... you have to
with more blood.
But, like, there's all agents you have to deal with then, and like, PR people and stuff like that, like...
That's true, so I'll be the face and my agent will be the heel.
Yeah.
Still be a good guy, come on now.
Well, I mean, if and when that does happen, and I'll definitely reach out and I'll say, hey, well, what's up?
If I don't come on the show, just cut a promo on me.
Yes.
We'll start a feud and someone will book us.
Yeah, that Kevin Kross, man. He's such a... No.
He's such a big league chew.
Yeah. All right. That's all I got. You have anything else you want to throw out there?
No, just want to say thank you, man. Thank you for taking the time to check me out. Thanks for giving me the plugs and the opportunity to go out there and let the world hear me. I sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you again, and I hope to do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. All
right, that was my interview with Kevin Kross. Told you that one was fun. A lot of fun, actually. He's a up-and-coming name, and he's only been doing it since 2014, which I couldn't believe when he said that. He has such an impressive background, an impressive resume already, and I really believe that we will be seeing him very soon on TV, and you heard it. If and when that does happen, I'll get him back on here, and I'll say, hey, remember? We talked about it? Here you are again, hopefully. But yeah, I will get out of here on my plugs. Like I said, July 31st, make sure you check out Legendary Action Wrestling in Yonkers, New York. Yonkers Revenge is called. I will be doing commentary there. And my other plugs, iTunes, always most important. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Please, that's the most important. Subscribing, great. Listening, great. But the feedback you give is the most important, because that helps it shoot up the charts or shows it's getting attention over there. Also, Twitter at ECWF Podcast. Facebook, Electric City Wrestling Fans group page. Make sure you join. Add all your friends. It's also on YouTube, Electric City Wrestling Fans. And I think that is it. So check out all the plugs. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on iTunes. Like on Facebook. Follow on Twitter. Sound like Zack Ryder now. I gotta get out of here. It's getting late. Thank you guys, and thank you, Kevin Kross, once again. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you guys on the next one.